In this lesson here, I'm going to talk about collaborating objects. Now, what we're talking about is in this account class here, you see that I have a check object here. I'm sorry. Before I even talk about that, I want to talk about, again, very briefly, name convention. So if you haven't noticed this already, I try to talk about, I try to teach lessons that are kind of as I go through it, so you could actually see how it works. I'm not just kind of talking to thin air. So now you notice I called this new behavior, or this new object, check. Okay, now what? Now let's read this line. If check is positive, okay, then do this. So you notice here that again, with carefully chosen behaviors, or carefully chosen names, you hardly had to comment at all. So if check is positive, if it's true, then do this. Maybe check num would be good, right? So I go if check num, and that's even better, right? So if check number is positive, okay, and then go ahead. So very extremely important to use relevant and extremely descriptive names for variables, functions, methods, behaviors, fields, or what have you. Okay, and that really comes with experience. And to be honest, it's mostly the experience of trying to debug and troubleshoot something that was named very poorly. very quite a painful experience. So collaborating objects, that's a really simple idea here. Remember in before I talked about a hot dog and a barbecue object collaborating with a propane object in order to get a task done. I can't stand an analogy, so I'm gonna lay that to rest. What we're talking about here is the check num object, okay, collaborating with this object in order to determine if we should proceed with the deposit or not. So what you're looking at here between this object here, check num, and this object is collaborating objects. We're talking about two different objects, okay? The check num object is invoking its is positive behavior. This object is invoking the balance behavior in order to get something done, and working together in order to achieve a task. Now, very quickly, do you remember what this means? Okay. Now, what is this? So in start here, the object that called the deposit behavior is G1. Okay. The G1 is the object that called the deposit behavior. Therefore, this is actually G1. Okay. That's what it means. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so I want to, I guess, end off this short lesson on a little bit about behaviors and methods, and actually returning values. Okay, so this is returning the value to the point at which this behavior was invoked or called. And we look at our validate function here. What I'm doing is I'm returning a value, okay, to the point where this method was invoked as well. Now, generally speaking, it's actually a good idea to kind of always return a value. And a really typical one, a basic one, is return whether it's true or false. Okay, whether this behavior or method was successfully implemented or successfully run or not. All right. The simple example I could give you is if you were a boss of a company. Sorry, let me start that over again. So always a good idea to have your method or behavior designed so that you're returning some kind of a value. It doesn't have to be a Boolean value. It could be any kind of a value. And the simple example I could give, I'm going to use a simple analogy here. If you're a boss of a company and you instantiate or create a custodian object to clean your garbage, You might want to hear back from your custodian garbage. True, the garbage has been cleaned, or false, it wasn't clean. All right. So you typically want to get some feedback back from the methods or behaviors that you invoke. Again, another example: if you're a boss of a company, and you instantiate or create an accountant object so that you can use the due taxes behavior that the accountant object offers, you might want to after you invoke the due taxes method or behavior, you might want to hear back from that method or behavior to a true or false. True, the taxes were done; false, the taxes were not done. Okay, so generally, designing, like I said, designing methods behaviors always a good idea to return some kind of a value. All right, just a good rule of thumb. Keep that in mind.